Why is immigration the focus of the 2024 U.S. election? According to Al Jazeera, ABC News, the immigration crisis continues to be one of the hottest issues in this year's U.S. presidential race. U.S. President Joe Biden and Mr. Donald Trump, who became his opponent in the November election, and made a separate visit to the US-Mexico border last Thursday, simply because they both agreed that the immigration crisis is a key issue for the U.S. voters in this year's race for the White House. Mr. Donald Trump, who is leading the race for the Republican presidential nomination, in recent statements in Iowa and New Hampshire, focused on the issue of immigration, considered one of the most hot topic of interest to American voters as the wave of people illegally crossing the border from Mexico into this country is becoming increasingly difficult to control. Mr. Trump announced that if he returns to the White House, he will reimpose a tough prevention and deportation strategy to handle the wave of immigrants and illegal residents in the U.S. More than 30% of Republican voters view immigration as a more urgent issue than strategic competition with China, the Russia-Ukraine war or the conflict in Gaza, according to a survey this month by Suffolk University and the Boston Globe and newspapers. USA Today. Mr. Trump seems to have grasped the sentiment of voters and increasingly mentioned the tough measures he wants to apply if elected to deal with the wave of immigration into the United States, including a commitment to end illegal immigration and tighten legal immigration management. In addition to stopping the wave of illegal immigration from the southern border and deporting people staying illegally, Mr. Trump also aims to change policies towards legal immigrants entering the U.S. Mr. Joe Biden took office as U.S. President in 2021, promising to reverse the tough immigration policies of his predecessor Donald Trump in a more flexible and humane direction, but the reality is far different from his expectations. When the number of migrants pouring across the border increased rapidly. According to statistics, the number of illegal immigrants arrested by the U.S. Border Patrol under President Biden reached the highest level in the agency's 100-year history, an average of 2 million people per year. To deal with massive illegal immigration into the U.S., Mr. Biden's administration has carried out many crackdowns in the border area, while increasing legal pathways for migrants. In an effort to resolve the migration crisis at the southern border, Mr. Biden promoted cooperation with Mexico, Panama, and Guatemala to implement measures to prevent the flow of migrants from afar. In December 2023, the world U.S. border officials have had difficulty handling the number of detained migrants, at one point reaching a record level of nearly 11,000 people per day. On the occasion of the meeting between Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and the high-level U.S. delegation last weekend, representatives of the two sides pledged to coordinate closely to resolve the record-high migration situation at the two countries' common border. Water. A senior U.S. official said that in recent weeks, the Mexican side has increased the implementation of many migrant management measures, including relocating migrants to the southern region of Mexico or resuming flights repatriated to Venezuela. A U.S. government report estimates that the country's border guard agency detained an average of 6,400 migrants per day last week, a sharp decrease compared to the time before Christmas. The number of people crossing the border also dropped at a record level between Christmas and New Year's Day. Recently, the U.S. Congress has intensified negotiations to tighten national border policy, in which the Senate is discussing changes to asylum and border control regulations. For the above reasons, both President Joe Biden and his predecessor Donald Trump are aware of the importance of immigration in the 2024 U.S. presidential race for both the Republican and Democratic parties, especially after discussions in the U.S. Congress on an agreement to limit illegal migration proposed by the Democratic Party collapsed. According to Gallup, 28% of Americans think immigration is America's most important issue, up from 20% in January and 9% in August 2023 in the latest poll. According to the most recent survey on American people's satisfaction with the Biden administration in handling immigration issues conducted by ABC News/Ipsos, from mid-January, Mr. Immigration management at the US-Mexico border is especially low, only 18% rated highly, half the rate in spring 2021. In a Marquette University poll, 92% of Republicans or Republican-leaning independents polled said Trump would handle the immigration issue better, while 51% Democrats or Democratic-leaning independents lean toward Mr. Biden. Both candidates Joe Biden and Donald Trump have tried to transform the nation's controversial immigration issue to their political advantage in the re-election that is almost certain to take place in November this year. However, non-MPI Migration Policy Institute analyst Muzaffar Kishti said that the immigration issue will be the biggest challenge for both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump.